Welcome to Legacy Sips and Tips podcast with your geeky host, Lindsay Wheeler, where we talk about everything from death, preparing for your future through estate planning, life, the occasional breakup, entrepreneurship, general nerdery, and of course travel, snowboard, and always wine. Welcome to Legacy Sips and Tips with your host, Lindsay Wheeler. In today's episode, we're going to discuss ADHD and why I have it, and why it's a pain in the ass sometimes, but also pretty super cool to have. So basically, the definition that you're being told about ADHD is it's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And with that, they say it's a disorder, it's a mental illness, it's a mental disorder. And I frankly don't believe that at all. I think those of us who have ADHD or ADD are just wired differently. It's not better or worse than other people or quote unquote normal people. It's just we're wired differently. We look at things differently. We handle situations differently, or we think about things differently, if you will. So it's just almost like not even a personality, characteristic, but it kind of is. It's just literally our brains are wired differently. So nothing good or bad about that. It's just different. Okay. With that, it's not very well known. It's not very well studied, particularly in women. It's usually considered, a young boy's illness, if you will, or that just young boy needs to be medicated because he's too hyper. Well, children are children, and children are hyper because they have a lot of energy because they're growing and they're children. Not every rambunctious little boy or little girl has ADHD. Typically, you're not diagnosed until later, and oftentimes in women, you're not diagnosed until usually much later, maybe even into your late 20s, early 30s, okay? With that, you have some struggles and difficulties fitting into the quote-unquote square world because, we all live in a society, we have to assimilate and work in these constraints that we have, and sometimes that doesn't fit. With that being said, it also makes things much easier. We handle things in different ways. We think of things different ways. We're a huge asset to have in a workplace setting. Problem solving, puzzle solving, communication skills, what have you. It is an amazing thing to have. Again, disadvantages of it too. Sometimes it's difficult with your interpersonal relationships. Sometimes it's difficult to be in romantic relationships, difficult to be in workplace settings because we don't usually typically fit the mold of what people expect people to be like. So that's a little bit about ADHD, and that, of course, I obviously have it. You can maybe already tell because I, click around pretty quick and what that is about, and I'm able to just ramble on to you guys quite easily because of it. So how does that look like in my brain, or maybe your brain if you have ADHD? I try to explain it to people who don't have it as this, is that say you're on the couch and you have a remote control and you have 1,000 different channels on the TV and you just go click, 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 click through the channels quickly as a time because you're looking for something interesting, and then you're clicking through. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Oh, we got a golf channel. Oh, look at that guy's pants. Oh, I kind of like that. Nope, click, 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 click. Oh, we're selling pots now. Hey, those pots are kind of cool. Oh, is that Gordon Ramsay? Oh yeah, that's pretty neat. I like that. Oh, click, click, click. That's kind of how our brains work. It's almost like there's that static sound in the background as well happening as we're clicking through all these channels at a pretty decent pace. Things are happening very quickly in the brain. They're always going on. Some people don't experience this, but most people do with ADHD, is that kind of like constant chatter in their brain. It's always there. It's always ongoing. And when you have external stimuli that overwhelms that, it can be quite frustrating, quite frazzling. And that's where you see people with ADHD sometimes get upset, they get frustrated, they get angry, they lash out because you're interrupting that or adding too much to what's already too much there. So it would be, our basic baseline is oftentimes an overload for other normal people who are not wired like us. That's just our baseline. We're always going, we're always thinking. So that makes us really good in certain circumstances like athletics. Michael Jordan, one of probably the best basketball players of all time, has ADHD. What does that do for him? It makes him hyper-focus. He has the energy to usually outperform. He's able to see things differently, maybe on the court or with games. So it's a lot of athletes or high-performing athletes typically usually will have it just because it helps you work at a different level than most normal people in those athletic situations, if you will. Where it becomes difficult is sometimes in workplace environments. This is why a lot of people with ADHD are entrepreneurs, because we don't play well with others per se. We're not good to fit into maybe a corporate molding or that kind of rigid or structured, institution for your employment. Good example for me, many examples for me, in fact, are, working at the courthouse, being a law clerk, having, the chief judge say, well, I don't see your law clerk here at 8 a.m. Well, bitch, I don't see you here at 8 p.m. when I'm working, because 8 p.m. or on the weekends is when I can actually focus and get some work done, because I don't have a lot of stuff going on in the background, like the girl across the office talking to her daughter about college. Things like that. Like, I still remember that 15 years later. Like, yeah, shut up. I don't care about your daughter and her getting her donuts in the morning. Like, what? I have to do some work. So I'd come in later in the evening, when nobody's there or nobody's bothering me. I can just have my music in the background and do my work. Same thing with the weekends. But I got in trouble because I'm not there at 8 a.m. or I'm late. People with ADHD are typically usually late for things. They're either super early or they're late. It's very difficult for them to be on time. I struggle with this daily. We have, it's like, I forgot what the term is, but it's like that waiting period time, like you're in the waiting room that, okay, well, I have an appointment at noon. It's 8 a.m. right now. My brain goes, oh, we have an appointment at noon. We can't forget it. Okay, let's wait, because we want to go to that appointment. But then we start getting distracted by something else, or we start working on something, and then, oh my God, it's 11:55. I'm late for that appointment now. That happens a lot. I drive quickly in my car to try to get to places on time because I'm usually chronically late. Another example is when I was at the legislature. I was doing the committee meetings, the transcripts for those, so I have the headphones on, I'm typing. I finally am getting focused to do it. I'm in my flow, and the copy editor comes and hands me my my documents from what they've done other meetings. Great. I go, okay, thank you, and go back to my work. I'd get in trouble for that because I would seem as if I'm dismissive or abrasive, because frankly, they're interrupting my work. I'm in the focus, I'm doing what I need to do, and they're interrupting me, bringing me their stuff. Okay, I know where your office is. If I have questions and I'm working on that task, I will come talk to you. I don't need to stop my flow, my work, and come talk to you right now. Do you see how ADHD brains work? And then people usually get angry, I'd get really upset. That's where the abrasive part would come in. What do you want me to do? Give you a gold star for doing your job? Leave me alone. I'm an adult. I can come find you if I need to get that done, And I have been in many meetings, and my retort always with that was, have I failed to do my job? And they would say, no, you haven't. And I'm like, then why are we having this conversation? Just because I didn't do it the way that they expected it to be done. I did it in a different way, but it still got done, and usually in a more efficient manner. ADHD people are really good at that, of doing things in an efficient manner, because that's the way our brains work. We look at things in a different way. We are very good in crisis situations. When there's more chaos, there's more distress, there's more horrible things happening, our brains go, yep, we are now going to take care of this. We're going to now focus on this. We're going to make sure that everything is taken care of in that way. I'm sure it served some evolutionary purpose back in the day. Maybe we were always hyper aware of looking at, hey, those people came to our gates and they burnt it down, 20 years ago. We should be paying attention to those people. We don't like that. We're watching them. Okay, we say they're cool, but they're not. Or hey, that lion over there is coming really close to our tribe. I don't know about that. Maybe we should look at that. We're letting everybody else know what's going on. So I think that's one of the really cool things about ADHD. We're spontaneity. We're good communication usually with people. We like to talk. We have the energy. We can be really hyper-focused. That's a lot of things that people don't understand about ADHD, that, yeah, there may be days where it takes me till 2 p.m. to actually get an email out. I don't know why. It's just that daily struggle sometimes to get there. Those days you just go, well, I guess we're going to try again tomorrow. But then there are other days where you can get in that workflow and that hyper-focus, and I can get a month's worth of work done in 4 hours, So that's kind of a cool thing. We always call them like our ADHD superpowers. Problem solving, because we look at things in a different way, in a different manner. Usually a good overview of things, we can get there. Sometimes we miss that small minutia, but we can give you a different way to look at these problems. So they're really good to have somebody with ADHD in your organization or whatever, because they're going to look at your problems and problem solve in a whole different manner than you may have with your normal staff. Looking at this, managing your challenges. So sometimes, our time frame works on a different realm. We're waiting for things, or we're in that hyper focus. We forget about things. Things are not in our kind of purview. It can be difficult in relationships. My boyfriend and boyfriends in the past have struggled with this of I just do things differently. Like sometimes I'll just doom scroll on my phone and there's a movie on and he's talking to me. Sorry, that's where my brain's going, you know. Or another good one is with food. Like we'll hyperfixate on things. Like I will eat the same yogurt and granola and berries for an entire month straight. It's the best thing in the world for me. Every single day I will eat that. And then on day 31, somebody could say, oh, do you want yogurt and berries and granola for breakfast? And I'll be like, ooh, no, I don't. No, that's the worst thing I could ever want to have. I never want to have that again. And then maybe 3 months later, I love it again. You know, we get kind of bored with mundane things or check out, if you will, because things are just too not interactive for our brains. Our brains aren't being stimulated in that way. So kind of cool things with that. Also, we lack dopamine. So things that give us that dopamine, we're going to look for that. That's that doom scrolling, looking at stuff. People are talking to people, talking to strangers. Sometimes impulsivity is a negative with that. We'll do, stupid shit, frankly, just because that sounds fun. A lot of times people who are undiagnosed with will self-medicate. A lot of times too, people who are undiagnosed or diagnosed will suffer from other ailments such as like anxiety or depression. That often goes hand in hand with a lot of things, mainly because our brains are overthinking everything because we're always on, if you will. So also with this, and there's a lot of things that don't get talked about with ADHD, especially in women being diagnosed later in life, that we didn't know about. I didn't know about until very recently that there is a phenomenon with ADHD called rejection sensitivity. Yeah, what's that mean? That means when someone tells you a criticism or critique, you take it like it's the end of the world. That they hate you and it sucks and you suck and everything sucks and they don't want to be with you or they don't want to deal with you and they're not your friend or whatever it is, when that's not true at all. They're just saying, hey man, your shirt's got some lint on it. Maybe you should take care of that. It's a bad example, but something like that, you know what I mean? If you feel hyper-critiqued or hypersensitive about things. That's also a superpower with ADHD. You are super emotional. You are super in touch, usually with other people's emotions and feelings, and are able to relate to them and to empathize with them on a much different level than a lot of other people do. So those are kind of the pros and cons about ADHD. So this week for wine, we are enjoying a Viognier from Hovey. This is out of Calaveras County, California. It's kind of like a little small AVA out of Murphy's, California. They're really great. I don't particularly like Viognier too much. I find them unbalanced primarily most of the time, but this is a really nice one. They did a really good job with this one, so I don't mind this for a nice summer or spring sipper. So that's what we're drinking today. So us with ADHD are oftentimes entrepreneurs because many reasons, but my opinions of these are all opinions, of course. I'm not a medical doctor giving medical advice, obviously, is that because we hyper-focus and we think quickly. And so I'm like, cool, I see proof of concept on something, I'm going to execute on that right away. I'm not going to sit there and question it or belabor it to the point where I get paralysis and not going to do it. I'm going to quickly do the pros and cons, get it done in my head and go, yep, we're going to do that. And if it doesn't work out, great, then we fail fast, we fail quick, and we move on to something else. We're able to pivot that way too in our brains. So a lot of times, during COVID, a lot of businesses failed. A lot of those businesses that succeeded, I would love to ask people and see if their founders or those people who pivoted had ADHD, that they were able to see the crisis, see the situation, see the issues with that, did their analysis and was like, we can shift it this way and this is how we're going to survive. I think the ones who didn't or were not able to do that were too rigid and not able to see the big picture and see the crisis situation that it kind of honestly was for a lot of industries, and were unable to be flexible in their thinking and their business mindset and taking advantage of things that were now in their control that were maybe outside of control or have shifted. So I think that's pretty cool. We can get a lot of stuff done. Often people think, oh, you're so inattentive and you're hyperactive and you're jittery and you're all these things and you're not paying attention. Well, yeah, that's true. But also if I'm in flow state and I finally get that hyper focus, I'm going to get it all done, all of it. Maybe in a time span of 4 or 5 hours, I'm getting a whole week's worth of work done, because that's how our brains work. Once we get into that flow state, that focus, it is go time. So it's really cool that if you have that or you have children who are like that, to give them that ability to be in their flow state and their hyper focus. That's really great for writers, for creatives, for scientists, people who are working on things, who are, doing those creative things. And I would like to say some of these maybe famous people in history, maybe some of our historians and our astronomers and scientists and artists had ADHD because they were able to get into that flow focus state and create amazing masterpieces that we now love and enjoy. So that's kind of a cool thing. Accommodations, it's not a disorder, it's just a different way of thinking. And so you can do accommodations for people or kids in school. I wish I had some of those, like giving just a little bit of extra time for me to get into that state. Maybe being able to have, go into a separate room and have maybe a background classical music or something that helps my brain. In college, I used to study at the casino because it was loud. It gives me an ability to do work. Recently, I've been at the winery doing my normal work, and people in the winery are like, how are you working right now? Like this, it is a cellar. Like this is loud. We have machines, we have forklifts, they're cleaning the tanks and everything. They're moving stuff around. There's moving barrels. There's people in and out. It's loud. How is anybody working on detailed writing or whatever? And it's like, this is perfect for me. Like I am got so much external stuff. It then makes me focus because my brain has now pushed all that out. And now I'm in this tunnel, if you will. So it's kind of an interesting way of having your brain think. Disadvantages if you will hyper focus on things. So going to maybe friends' houses that are not as clean that you'd like them to be or organized, your brain's going to focus on that and be like putting things away in your brain of where they could go and organizing them, because that makes your brain feel more clear and less frazzled. My whole house, frankly, is an accommodation for ADHD. I put my keys in the exact same spot every time so I know exactly where they are, so that mental real estate is not being there of keeping track of where my keys are. Certain things are where they need to be so I don't lose them. If I need to bring something with me and it's very important, I will literally either put it in the car itself or put it right in front of the door that I will trip over it, because I'm thinking of it in the now. I may not think about it in the future. So if it needs to go with me, it needs to be put there now and not later, because I will forget about it. With that being said, you could ask me where the purple thumbtack is that I used in 2014. I'm gonna tell you exactly where it is. It's under the shelf that fell in the back that I couldn't get to with the vacuum, and it's still there. Yeah, things like that. Super random. Our memories are super cool. Like, yeah, we can be flighty and not think about things, but we can also have an incredible memory on other things that maybe are even interest us. I have a weird memory about music, lyrics, songs, artists. I can pull them up. You can, give me 2 notes and I'll be like, oh, it's that song. Oh, it's this song. That person wrote it, whatever it is. So it's kind of an interesting way of our brains shifting information or retaining information that's important to us. So if it's not important or engaging, oftentimes we won't retain it. This is why a lot of times we're bad at tests, because they're boring. They don't interest us. We don't care. That's why I struggled with the bar, frankly. Those MBE multiple choice, shoot me in the face right now. Like, I fell asleep one time because they were so boring and just didn't interest me. I know I needed to do it. I know it was important, but I didn't want to. It just sucked. So, but you give me the performance part of that test and I kill it on that, because I'm actually now doing something and it's interesting to me. So those are the kind of things like that. If you do employ people who have ADHD, just give them a little bit of leeway, because they're going to be a huge asset to your team, but they may not be on time. They may not come with the most together clothes. They might have just picked something that they found off the floor because that was the easiest thing for their brain in the morning because they felt rested and frazzled. But, you give them a huge project or something that they're interested in, they're going to be the best person that you could ever have on a team to get that done. Another cool thing that we're really good at is crisis situations. So you have something horrible happen, you have a crisis, there's an accident or whatever it is, something traumatic and awful happening. We are your go people. We will be focused, we'll be calm, we'll be analytical, we will take care of things, we can triage, we can say this is the most important thing, you go here, you go there, we can delegate. So I think a lot of people with ADHD are in crisis management, or maybe in those more first responder roles, because that is where we excel. We're fantastic at those horrible situations, unfortunately. It's probably why I do what I do. I deal with death, I deal with planning, and those awful situations that I can sit, take the emotion out of it and handle the business, and then package the emotions elsewhere and take care of it later. So some cool things about ADHD. So when you have friends or family who have it, it's not a bad thing. Don't put them down. Don't say it's a disorder. Don't say it's a mental illness. It's not. It's just a different way of thinking, and it's a different way that our brains are wired. And if you really learn and take advantage of the strengths of it, man, they're going to be their favorite person in the world. Yeah, we have some drawbacks. That rejection sensitivity is a big one right now. Struggling with that one really. Organization, sometimes being on time, whatever. But, other than that, we're pretty fun to be around because we like to talk. So if you have ADHD, I would love to chat with you and see what kind of things that you have done to make your world a little bit easier or easier to fit into our normal square life. Or kind of cool things that have happened to you that you're like, Anna, I'm so stoked I have this. I'm so stoked my brain thinks this way. Let me know, because that's always a fun discussion to have. And of course, you can always find me at Your Estate Plan Online or High Sierra Legal. And of course, when you think of death, think of me. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you found value, please like, subscribe, and share. And be sure to follow me on all the socials at Sips and Tips with Lindsay. And of course, you can always go to my website, sipsandtipswithlindsay.com, to find more information about estate planning, business, snowboard, travel, and of course, wine. As always, we have to get the legal stuff out of the way. I went to law school, so you don't have to. However, we have to read the special disclaimer that I am not a practicing attorney. I am not your attorney. I am not offering any legal advice in any content or any episode. All content is for your information and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for seeking your own legal advice from your own attorney or other professionals such as a CPA or financial advisor. I cannot give legal advice and do not offer any legal services or legal advice, but I do offer some fun and educational content for you to enjoy.